Okay, it's 10:30, and I want to say good morning to everybody and good morning to operations. This is the first operation meeting of the year, and Happy New Year to everybody. And we have a good agenda, great agenda today, and we're going to start off our agenda. Let me see, pull it up again. We're going to start off our agenda, everybody, in operation at 10:30 on the dot, and for information technology update for 22 FY22. Is everybody here for FY22? Everybody available?
We are, and we've put up the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to mute um, my voice, and you can get started.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. I am Thomas Jones, the Chief Information Technology for the Officer for the district. I'm also playing the dual role of representing the CEO, Dr. Sonia Sangalises. I've got a little feedback. So we're going to get started. I have one of my guys running it. So Mike, let's get going. One of the things that's very important, as we've known from the board, is that we always want to know how the work we're doing aligns with the strategic board priorities. In the case here of information technology, we are sort of like electricity. We cross over so many things, and it's virtually impossible to do anything anymore without us. But the three main priorities that we align with are priorities 3, 5, and 7. 3, of course, being high quality modernized facilities and supporting and resources. We are that part of that resources. Priority 5 being equal access to district services. Again, where our students needing access to the education, to the classroom, the what's being taught, the technology group was there. And then the last one is the city schools working continuously towards equality at all level. We have working almost completed, having every student have a device within the school system, and then some spares. That will be a great accomplishment. There are a few more weeks out, but that way we will know that everybody is on the same footing, and we can use technology to help implement some of the learning directives and learning initiatives that academics has and other groups. Next slide, Michael. The objective here for this presentation is to provide the board with an update on what the Office of Information Technology has as initiatives, including the enablement of distant learning, remote work, technology support, and cybersecurity, something we can never emphasize too much. Understand the mission of the Baltimore City Public Schools through a technology lens. Excellence and equity in education for every child at every level by focusing on quality instruction, managing systems efficiency, again, that's where we really come in, and sustaining a culture of excellence. Next. And by the way, commissioners, you can interrupt me at any time. We will take questions whenever it's convenient for you. The vision, excuse me, having a little bit of tongue twist this morning. The vision and mission of the Information Technology Group is to be a trusted advisor. That's a big deal for us. We want to be a partner and provider of innovative technology with which support staff can enable students to be global learners. And I want to emphasize the word trusted, the two words trusted advisor. You can be an order taker, which means people just yell at you and tell you go get their, cheeseburger or their French fries. Or you can actually be an advisor where you sit down and you help them understand what their diet should be based on their own conditions. We are working hard to be that trusted advisor, working with the academic team, working with the fiscal team, working with all the different partners we have to make sure we are doing that. Our mission, of course, is that we are committed to empowering schools and offices with innovative technology and services, and we accomplish this by developing skilled IT staff, customer-oriented mindset, and providing a stable and secure and highly integrated. This is crucial in today's environment, a stable, secure, and highly integrated technology environment. Next. COVID-19 has really been something to deal with, as we all know. We have been trying very hard for the last 2 years to build on the IT goals and integrate the things we need to do for COVID. And quite honestly, I think we have done an excellent job. And I never hate to say, to pat myself on the back, but I'm patting my team on the back, not me, because they've been here for 2 years and they've really looked very hard at what the IT goals were and whether or not it fits the city school mission, whether or not we do the assessments of what's being used, how technology is being used, what is it being used for, and whether or not we are doing it safely in a COVID environment. I just looked at a report that I created, my team created for me yesterday. We've rolled out somewhere near 67,000 computers. That's a lot of computers. We've had breakage and we've had theft and that type of thing, but we're getting very, very close to where every child has one. In fact, last Monday and Tuesday, I was super impressed because the team rolled out 1,000 computers on each of those days, trying to meet the demand of our students. So we're working hard to make sure our goals are those goals that support the city, the students, and the teachers who are trying to get this done. Next slide. One of the things that's very important, and I'll sort of emphasize this over and over again, is the alignment of our goals to the city's mission, the school's mission. And we do that in three different areas. And I won't go through all this detail, but in three different areas, and that is literacy, wholeness, and leadership. And just on the literacy, we work very hard to support the quality instructions. In today's environment, in today's world, technology usage to deliver instructions is just getting greater and greater and greater. And so part of what the team does is that we work across the board with all of the organizations and make sure we are supporting that delivery of quality instruction, partnering with academics and schools and driving innovation. We hope to drive a lot more innovation over the next couple of years. That's what we're working towards. We also work about wholeness, managing the systems very efficiently. In this case here, we want to be a steward of the organization's information assets. We want to optimize the cost to deliver IT and to significantly enhancing security. And I do mean significantly enhancing security. We also optimize the IT service delivery to improve our customer satisfaction. One of the things that I noticed when I first came in the door was customers had lots of small things that were getting in the way of the maximum usage. Well, thankful that the team, I think I can say, has probably gotten rid of at least 85% of those small things. So optimizing our services to deliver, to improve the customer satisfaction is critical. We still have work to do. We have lots of work to do, but we've worked very hard on that particular issue. And we've also worked very hard to make sure a system equally accessible across our customer base. And then the last, I'll just reemphasize that trusted business advisor. I won't beat it to death, but we have to work to make sure we are working hand in hand with them and helping them deliver a solution, not a piece of technology. Next. I think, Michael, you're going to take this over?
I will. Good morning, commissioners. And so here, just wanted to share some of the technology accomplishments with you to help reduce the digital divide. And so as Chief Thompson spoke about, there's been a lot of work to help ensure that students have the necessary access to devices, as well as internet connectivity to succeed both in schools and in virtual settings as well. And so at this point, we have more than 70,000 Chromebooks purchased. And when we put this slide together, we're at 60,000 distributed. And as Chief Thomas indicated, there's a lot more deliveries and work being done right now to continue to do that work. We've changed the device distribution process, which is now centralized, which reduces the administrative work of schools, just knowing that school staff have so much on their plates right now, and we wanted to ensure that we're doing everything in our power to help reduce that workload on them. Then, of course, with more devices, there's just more work around supporting those devices and call center personnel as well on the device side that our team's engaged with. And then on the connectivity side, continue to encourage and provide avenues for families to have connectivity. Of course, continue to leverage the Comcast Internet Essentials program. We have also more than 21,000 hotspots that have been provided to families to help support connectivity. And then there's a lot of work that's happening as well to improve in-school Wi-Fi connectivity as well, just to enable more classrooms and spaces inside school buildings to be able to be used for digital instruction.
And before you go on, Michael, I just want to add one enhancement on one point you said there about the increase in staff. We realized we responded very much to what the schools were telling us back in July, August, September, and October about how slow the response the team was. We realized we just didn't have enough staff to increase that, to respond to that influx. So Michael's team brought in a bunch of temporary staff, trained them, and helped them respond better to the school system. Again, trying to be that trusted partner. Sorry, Michael, you can pick back up.
Not a problem. Great point that you just made. Then in terms of continuing to discuss accomplishments, so enabling learning platforms and business applications as well. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Anand Subaya, Director of Application Services, to discuss some of these things. Anand, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. So this year, from the lessons learned during the pandemic, our team launched, like, based on the new initiatives and based on the RRR program, we launched several new initiatives, part of the technology to support the school system. And one of them are learning management system to support the virtual learning program for the 2 elementary schools and 1 secondary schools, population of like close to 2,000 students. That is widely used. That is Schoology, which we purchased it. And in addition to all the learning platforms we purchased during the pandemic, for example, like Seesaw, Google Classroom, and everything else. And Zoom is also been integrated with all the new technologies to support the synchronized learning for the virtual learning students. Again, our another LMS, learning management system, Blackboard, which is being widely used for algebra project, in addition with the Johns Hopkins as well as Copin Academy. So that is with the learning platform. Please interrupt me if you have any questions here. And also, in addition to that, business applications have been widely deployed to support the pandemic as well as the new initiatives part of the RRR, which is a COVID-19 dashboard, which is available in our district website. And also we are working with our state health department to get the COVID vaccination data for the students automatically, so that will reduce the workload for the schools. And also for the parents to submit the COVID data. So all this integrated, and we are currently collecting the information from the state health department directly. And then we launched out a lot of dashboards with our partners, OAA partners, accountability, and also from academics, with leaderships to show the learning loss and the student progress as well. And this year, again, we launched a virtual choice program by working with our enrollment and choice team that is being in progress. And the last thing is supported human capital and hiring and out-of-state teachers, and also handling the payroll and everything, out-of-state withdrawal and their compliance and everything, but working with the finance and human capital. In addition to that, team is also supporting the new ERP project as well. Michael, next slide, please.
Well, let me, before you go, I want to emphasize the next to last bullet here with supporting hiring of out-of-state teachers. That was a brilliant, smart move by our human capital and our leadership team. But it's few people understand how much work that caused in the old 20-year-old ERP system, having to go in, pay people and tax tables and withholdings and report all that stuff. The team, really hunkered down and made that possible, which we would have not been able to do school this year. I don't think if we hadn't done it. So a brilliant decision by others in the school, and the team really made that happen. And of course, the new ERP project that we're launching all at the same time. So we've gotten a lot of stuff done on the application side.
Thank you, Chief
Okay.
Joe.
Mhm.
So here is the new ERP project overview so far. As you know, like the board approved the contract in September 21st, and now we are working with the vendor to look at the like we are planning to implement like phase one and phase two. Phase one is nothing but a finance, and phase two is budgeting process. Currently, it's a little bit of background. Like our existing EBS is a outdated technology which has been implemented 20 years ago. That is where we are trying to replace with Oracle Fusion, and AST is the implementer who won the bid. That is what board approved, and that is where we put it as a kind of a background. And what is our objective? We want to have a modernized system and a scalable system and a cloud system, right? For with enhanced security and availability 24 by 7, 365 days. And moreover, it is widely used. We did not pick just another software. We bought a software which is used by Fortune 500 companies, which is Oracle Fusion, that also implemented in other K-12 districts such as Montgomery and other districts. And it comes with nowadays most of the system comes with improved data analysis. We mentioned as improved needs and real-time access to the data. Those are our objectives for this project. And where we are right now, currently the team is trying to backfill, so that our team can more focus on the ERP project, and new consultants hired to backfill this project will be focusing on the operation side of it. So that is where the team is currently focusing it, and we are planning to fulfill it. And the next one is business owners of the best practices. That is what the vendor is bringing out. Like what are the things, like they have an extensive experience with other K-12. So they are saying, okay, here is the things like implemented to improve the process efficiently implemented in other K-12, and also from other non-K-12 companies. So that is why, and also as a change management process, we are reviewing all the current process, and looking for, is there any way we can improve efficiency and make it effective, reduce the number of steps. So those are the things we are already like 8 to 10 process being identified part of the RFP. And also during this discovery session, the team is going to how Montgomery County is using it, how other school districts are using, and how the other non-K-12 companies are using it, the tool, how to make it, the tool can be more efficient. Those are the things being done. And which is bold here, we are planning to minimize the customization and personalization. That way, every upgrade can happen seamlessly. That is the one thing. And the control scope, which is what we publish part of the RFP, we are making sure that scope is there, like we are what our needs, and also measuring how the scope and what is being implemented. As you just a reminder, like we selected Oracle Fusion as our major ERP, and also we selected Kronos, which is nothing but United Kronos Group for time and entry, where every employee submit the time entry through mobile app and through desktop app, and leave, and also absence management, staff absence management, all handled through that application from us. So the expectations of the new ERP, as I mentioned, like phase one, phase two, mostly with the finance and budgeting, and phase three is all about human capital, all those modules, and modules that are highlighted in asterisks. Those are non-Oracle solutions that are not part of Oracle Fusion, but the data will be flowing into Oracle Fusion. But these are new systems, as I mentioned, like Kronos, and also learning management system for staff to have onboarding and what kind of training they need, and how that training can be accommodated with academic unit as well. And the last thing is analytics. Oracle, the contract itself comes with the cloud analytics, It has its own dashboard and also all the reports. A self-service model, that is where we are approaching towards. Next slide, please. Here is a high-level project timelines. That project team named this project as Project Ravens. We call that Program Ravens because multiple projects are within this program. The Raven stands for Reliable, Accessible, Valuable, Enterprise-Wide Nimble System. The high-level timelines where we are today, January 22, and we are in the 18th. Here we are looking for all the discovery session is completed and the team is trying to do the sprint one, which is the first iterative process of conversion. And as I mentioned, like phase one, phase two, which is planning to go live on January 2023. That is estimated go live. And also we part of the contract, we got like 3 months support once we go live. That has been highlighted in this timeline. And then human capital core modules are going live part of the phase 3, phase 4, which is nothing but we are planning to go live on January 2024, a year after we go live with the finance and budget. The other future contracts, currently the team is working on it, which is highlighted below the dotted lines there, which is the learning management system for staff. That is Human Capital Office as well as ITD and other partners are working to release RFP or RFI soon. And then we are looking at how to enhance applicant tracking system for new recruits and onboarding and everything. That is also will be seamlessly integrated with Oracle Fusion as well. Those are the high-level timelines narrated here. So here is the upcoming major milestones. Board approved on September 28th, and kickoff meeting from Dr. Santelises did a district-wide kickoff meeting. And we established a project governance and schedule on 16th. And the roles and responsibilities are identified. Now, as I mentioned, like the discovery session is completed for phase 1 of finance. And by next month, we will be starting the discovery session for the budgeting phase. Right now, we have a change management lead. That person will be reviewing the change management strategy by looking at each and every process and how the system will impact district-wide every user. It touches every user, and that program, that strategy is being finalized, and we are planning to launch it in February. And staff-facing learning management system, which I mentioned, like that planning to go for RFP or RFI release by February. That is the estimated timeline. Maybe get delayed because of other COVID initiatives. That planning to release by February. At least the requirements will be completed by February. And then define data, like we are migrating some of the data from the legacy system, our existing Oracle system, to the new Oracle Cloud. That is being defined based on the board policy and also how we are using the data on an ongoing basis. The last thing is like we are planning to do our first review by June 2022. That's the first iteration of this in the testing instance that employee will be reviewing it. That is all, I believe, from the applications team. If you have any questions, I can stand here and address it.
Commissioner Reed, do you have a question at this point?
Are they finished, or this is just one portion?
I don't think you're finished.
No, we have a few more.
Yeah, I'll wait till you finish.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, could we, we're at the point where we need to speed it up a little bit. Could you do so? And then we'll ask a couple of questions at the end. Okay.
So noted.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. This is Elvis Tia, Director of Infrastructure, Data Center, and Security. So we've done few things to work with the magnitude of devices we've added to our fleet. And in order to accommodate the different devices coming into our infrastructure, with considering those 70,000+ devices that were distributed, we've increased the bandwidth of our infrastructure, our WAN. We were able to increase our school capacity from 1 gig to 10 gig, which is about 10 times what it used to be pre-COVID. That project has continued to go on. We are at the end of the project now. We've completed up to 83%. We have about 23 sites remaining. And our intent is to complete the entire project by the end of this month. And that will also reduce the cost of our yearly service from 2.8 million to 1.6 million, which is a huge reduction. So we're winning it both ways. We're increasing our bandwidth, and at the same time, we are reducing the cost of how much we pay for internet service the entire next year. We also have another project which is for the switches and wireless. Those are the back-end devices that are used to facilitate connection between the end user device and the internet connection. We are replacing all of our legacy devices. We are right now going on with that, and our anticipated completion date is May 2022. We hope to complete all of those things at the same time. And we are also increasing the number of access points into our schools, right? We previously had about 6,000, and we're increasing that number to 10,000 because there are a lot more devices coming in to the school buildings, as well as our headquarters. Michael, can you move? And so in order to do that, we also have to make sure that that is done in alliance with cybersecurity, because we have to make sure as those devices come in, they are secure. We've noticed that there have been over 200 cyber attack groups within our environment. LEAs around us have been attacked, but there are a lot of things we have done to make sure our infrastructure is secure, right? So the first thing is collaboration. So we've contacted federal, state, and local agencies. We have a collaborative communication going on where we inform each other of things that are, things that seem to be abnormal. We've also done a lot of review, contacted agencies to review our infrastructure to make sure that, we don't just see things from inside, but from outside as well. Michael? So there are major threats, right? The top threats that we've seen so far for the past 2 years have been phishing emails, malicious applications, insecure endpoints, which are the devices that are used by the staff and the students, bad domains, people, redirecting you to a domain that is a fictitious domain, not the original one. And then the big one also is ransomware, where people, take charge of your devices and ask you to pay this amount of money. I think a lot of people, we are aware of that by now. So those are the top threats. So Michael, move to the next one, and I'll elaborate on the strategies that we have. So we've provided strategies to deal with those threats, right? And it seems to be working so far for the past 2 years, and we continue to fine-tune those strategies. Culture awareness is one. Make sure our users are aware. They are trained to identify risk when they see them. Then we also have our network security. We have broken our network into several different pieces, and that gives us the capacity to mitigate threats, to isolate any vulnerability, and then to be able to solve that problem without impacting the entire infrastructure. We also have device security. So we've upgraded, we beefed up the security of our end user devices, be it Chromebook or whatever is used by our students or staff. We make sure that those devices are up to date. Vulnerability management, we also keep track of things that we have systems now that can say, hey, I see something that is abnormal, even though we're not impacted yet, but you might want to look into that. That puts us into a proactive mood to be able to take action before things happen than being reactive. And then we have security incident management, where we provide information to upper management to let them know if things are not right, so that they can be able to, the information we provided them will put them in the capacity to make decisions rapidly. So these are the strategies we have put in place to deal with the previous 5 threats that I talked about. Michael? So finally, our entire department categorized our approaches into 5 different areas. Device availability, we have to make sure the students have devices to do their work, whether they are in school or they are remotely with our ERP programs. And we also have strategized to develop our applications as needed, because there's a new norm after COVID or during COVID. There are a lot of things that are happening that are, strange. Those are not things that were happening before, so we have to adapt to those things rather. Then we also have the in-person learning site support and service desk. Our service desk, we are in the position now to be able to respond rapidly, as well as support the VLP programs. Those are things that weren't in place before. And as I previously spoke about our network bandwidth, we have increased our bandwidth to support in-person learning as well as VLP, meaning, students from home that are also logging into our network to carry on instruction. We have the capacity to deliver the service that is needed. And then finally, training, the guidance in our standard operating procedures, right? We will continue to train our staff as well as students to make sure that if they see things that are not appropriate or they're not sure of anything, they should let us know and we will take action before it becomes a major issue. So those are the things we've done to support. Now, comments and questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I got a little echo at some point. I don't know why. But anyway, thank you. Great presentation. I'm going to ask Commissioner Reed, do you have a question at this point?
Yeah, I got a few.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not too many. I guess one, let's go to page 5.
Mhm.
Okay, the vision. I'm just speaking as a pedestrian.
Yeah.
I look at IT as being really integral in terms of any organization, especially over the last 5 years and the next 20. So I don't look at you as an advisor or partner. Hopefully I look at you as a leader. I would think that you would bring to the CEO and a board ideas that can point us in the right direction going forward. So I would ask for your leadership more than your advice and your partnership. Because I think you see things we don't see, or you should see things we don't see.
Right.
That gets back to another question I have in terms of looking at cyber and what's happened over the last year or so. Are there any incidents or near misses that the board should know about that you guys rectified, you saw, or maybe ongoing?
Well, when it comes to cybersecurity, I'm going to let Elvis do the detailed answer, but one of the things is we are very cautious about what we say, because as soon as you say something, someone picks up a recording and so forth, we get attacked nonstop. I mean, nonstop. And that is the reason we collaborate so much with these other agencies to do that. But Elvis, if you, we'd rather answer the question in private session,
Okay.
if possible. Unless Elvis, you have something you can share.
So saying what you just said, what's the mechanism for you to let the board know offline any concerns, any hits, or anything we need to know? Because we're responsible for oversight.
Absolutely.
If you know it and we don't know it, we can't help you.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So
we raised
please, I mean, I can't speak for my chair. I can't speak from Commissioner Bondima, but all I know is I need to know what I don't know.
Totally understood. We raise all concerns first, of course, to the CEO. We've not had something that we think we need right this second to bring to the board, other than, like I said, we are steadily enhancing our posture.
Okay, and I guess another thing is, you talk about Ravens. Is there some costs that we need to know about in terms of how much all that's going to cost?
There is, right now, it is what we projected originally. The only thing that we are concerned about is the fact that we have struggled to get backfills. The market is so hot right now, trying to get staff and so forth. That's been a constant battle. But we're not seeing anything that we should tell you now, today, but we certainly will keep you updated every month as things change.
Okay, and my last question, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. My last question is about Chromebooks. Okay, Chromebooks have gone from being decentralized to centralized. So all the Chromebooks come back to central based on what we had in terms of the previous virtual process. If we go back to virtual, what's the process of putting those Chromebooks out to the students? Are some students not allowed to get them because they screwed up the first time, or is it basically uniform? Anybody that wants one can get one.
Well, no student is prevented from getting one because they screwed up the first or second time. They
Okay.
get counseling if they screwed up the first or second time. But we are right now in a distribution phase where we're making sure that every student, I mean, we are working, and we say it's central, we should say it's a partnership. What we do is we've taken over responsibility for keeping the data up to date and reaching out. The schools are still bringing to us requests for, individual students, and we're honoring them. I'm telling you, the activity of the past 2 or 3 weeks, Commissioner, has been immense. I mean, we got 97 requests on a Friday afternoon for over 1,000 devices. The team delivered them all by Monday afternoon. So we are out in the schools, literally talking to Chief of Schools, Chief Davis, and the school principals and all in their weekly operations stats, and making sure we get that. So we are definitely going to be we support the virtual learning, and I can't say it won't be one, but we will definitely have within a few weeks we will be 100% every student with a device. So we are rapidly approaching that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move on, but I have one question that I wanted to ask because Commissioner Reed did ask good questions that I was concerned with, so I'm going to move past it. One thing in the very beginning of your presentation, I was, when you say this is post COVID-19, post, and we're right in the midst of a pandemic, why, real quickly, why do you call it post?
When I say post, it's probably maybe a bad terminology, but the past 2 years of all the lessons we have learned, that is making us better.
Right, because I looked at your objectives and where we need to go from here, and I'm not sure if we're at the post point. So I just want to bring that up when you're presenting, to let us know, because you have quite a few roads of journey to go with this with the projects or technology. So I just wanted to know why we think that we're post. But
yeah, so that was a misspeak on my part. I shouldn't have said post.
no, it's not a mistake. I just was wondering.
Yep. Okay.
What you thought about being post. But anyway, thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. We really appreciate your presentation. Everybody did, your whole team, your entire team did a great job. But we have lots of questions later, but those questions will come along as we move through the process. Okay. And thank you. And we're going to move to our next presentation. Let me pull that up. Let me pull up. Okay. Next presentation will be Capital Improvement Project CIP Mid-Year Report. And that's for 2023 to 2028. Okay. Is everybody here?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. Hopefully you can see my slide deck.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So hi, I'm Cindy Smith. I'm the Director of Facilities Design and Construction, and I'm happy to present our CIP mid-year report this morning. So just starting off, of course, with our strategic priorities, we are aligning the CIP with strategic priority 3, which is that city schools will have high quality modernized facilities and resources to support the success of all of our occupants. Just to go over what we're going to go over, we'll talk about where we stand with this year's CIP, the financial implications of it, any other state funds that we've received, and then certain decision points regarding the CIP timeline and conclusion of it. In the appendix, there is a lot of details about specific schools and things like that and projects at each school that we might reference as we go. So just getting started, the CIP is a 6-year plan that identifies public school construction needs. It consists of this budget year, which is FY 2023, as well as anticipating requests for major projects for the following 5 years. We submit this annually to the IEC, which is the Interagency Commission on Public Construction. And we primarily focus on projects that are proposed to address capacity, support the implementation of educational initiatives, improve building performance, or address facilities priorities. So the key goals for our FY 2023 CIP was funding for our 4 major projects that are currently ongoing. So that would be Armistead Gardens, Murray Faring, Furley, and Northeast. And we'll touch on some specifics about those projects in a few minutes. In addition, we also submitted requests for any unfunded projects from the FY22 CIP request, which are basically B or C status projects. A B project is one where they've approved the scope but don't have the money for it, and a C project is one where the ISC is still questioning the scope. We had 14 of those projects ranging from elevators, roof spoilers, HVAC, and multi-systemics, and a list of those specific projects are included on the next slide. In addition, we had 4 new projects that we submitted this year. 2 major projects for local planning, which is the first step of any major project. And we'll talk about details of these 2 projects later on, but those 2 projects were Ben Franklin and Edmondson. In addition, we submitted 2 systemics, a fire alarm request for Marianne Winterling and a pool request for Edmondson. So these were the project requests broken down. This group down here was the B projects from last year, as well as then the top part is the major projects, the significant major projects that I mentioned previously. The total request was for $73 million, $54 million from the state and 19 from the city. So just getting into some of the details about the request. We always map them across our CCI, the Community Conditions Index score, which was developed by our planning department. It has 4 scores, 4 sets of scores, and we range the projects across them, or we show the projects across those scores. We don't necessarily include the CCI score or the geographic score within the reason for submitting a CIP request, because most CIP requests are based on emergent needs and life cycle requests. We do this just to show that we do submit projects that are across the city in all sorts of neighborhoods, through all highest needs and lowest needs, and across all the quadrants, to show that we're kind of trying to equally invest, or as much equally as invest as we can across the city. So I want to hit on something that's really important for how this works, and that's the maintenance and capital interrelationship, and how that all works together and ties together. So all buildings and major projects begin as a capital project. A building is a capital project when it is first designed and constructed. When a building is designed and constructed, we create a building maintenance plan, a BMP, along with the warranties, which are all then turned over to maintenance. And those inform then maintenance practices throughout the life of the system or life of the building. A building life cycle is much longer than a system life cycle. Systems typically average around 20 years for the most part. Buildings are designed to be 50 years or longer. So you'll see several systemics replaced throughout a building, hopefully throughout the life cycle of a building itself. So maintenance then uses the BMP and the warranty information throughout their process of maintaining and performing routine and preventive maintenance activities. And then when it's nearing the end of a life cycle, ideally, we then submit that project back in the CIP for a replacement. You should note that most of our projects at this point are well beyond the life cycle by the time we're submitting them, because of what we'll talk about in the next slide, of the significant underfunding that we receive. So our portfolio is significant, and there are studies out there that indicate how much money across the board you should receive for maintenance and for capital investments that is related to the current replacement value of your portfolio. So based on our replacement value of our portfolio, we should receive $200 million every year for capital costs, which is a 4% of our current replacement value. FY22, just to note that does include Healthy Schools funds, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that was a different pot of money for us. We received $68 million, and that's significantly more than what we usually do because of the Healthy Schools. But that is still only 1.4% of what we should be receiving to be able to maintain or to be able to perform all the life cycle replacements that we should be performing every year to be able to maintain our portfolio. And just to note, in comparison, for maintenance costs, we should receive about $150 million, and our current budget was $38 million, which is less than 1% of the CRV. So all told, we receive just shy of $107.3 million between maintenance and capital, and we should receive about $350 million to be able to maintain and replace our life cycle replacements of our systems at the timelines that they should be. So this combines to an annual deficit of just shy of $243 million, which is huge. This means that we cannot maintain our portfolio. We cannot perform our life cycle replacements that we should. This is why things like our HVAC systems are running at a 30-year life cycle instead of 20s, or in some cases 40 years, that we're still piecing them together and trying to make them operate when they are 20 years past their expected life cycle. This deficit is also why we see things like Utah Marshburn not being able to repair their exterior skin, and therefore or replace their exterior skin and then their windows in their HVAC system, is because we have this huge deficit that we can't overcome. This is not a one-time thing. A one-time influx of money will not overcome this, because you still have this amount of money that we need to receive on an annual basis to be able to maintain our portfolio. So systems that were replaced, for example, in some of the early 21st century buildings will still need to be replaced in the 20-year time frame, and with this deficit, that money doesn't exist to be able to do that. So moving on, our request this year was for $73 million. Of that, 54 was from the state and 19 was from the city. We have now received the 75% allocation was posted on December 16th. So the IAC presented recommendations for approvals of only 5 of the 22 requested projects. These are the 5 projects that were recommended at the 75% level. At 75%, the funding is $18.9 million. The total 100% is estimated to be $24.2 million. Note that this is significantly also less than what our typical annual average is that we receive, but the governor did cut the state capital budget this year, so that affected all of the capital requests that all of the LEAs received so far. So based on that anticipated projected 100% recommendation, we would have 5 major projects funded at the portion of what we requested for a total of $24 million projected, with no additional systemics or AC projects or any other projects that we submitted being approved. So I'm going to hit major projects next, just to tell the status of them. We still, of course, put Holabird and Graceland in here because we are still in demolition phase of those existing buildings. The field should be done by this summer. Holabird is completely down at this point. The existing building is completely demolished. Graceland is in that status right now. These are, of course, our exciting net zero buildings that we're super proud of. In addition, we have several projects in design, and these are the ones that have received some funding this year. Armistead Gardens, which is currently estimated at about $43 million. Now, note that these estimates are from before and were submitted from before the market kind of went a little crazy with construction pricing. So there is a significant potential that these prices, when we bid them, will be higher. But Armistead Gardens is in design at this point. We are anticipating occupancy in 2024. This will be a phased occupied renovation and addition project to increase occupancy, increase capacity. There we go. Increase capacity, because this building utilization is currently 216%, I believe it is, with 2 portables on site housing majority of the students. In addition, the next project is Murray Faring. It has also received some funding this year. Its proposed occupancy is August of 2023. It is in design right now. At this one, again, because of a huge utilization, a significant overutilization, it's also at 203%. The building is really overcrowded, also with a portable on site. We purchased the adjacent property, And we are renovating the historic church on that property and building a new classroom addition to be able to house pre-K through first graders in a standalone little early learning center just for them on site. Next, we have Furley. Furley is also in design. It did receive some funding this year. Its proposed occupancy is also August of 2024. This one, as you may recall, the students are currently in the Thurgood Marshall building. They were swung off site almost 4 years ago now, because of some structural failures at the existing building. So the existing building will be completely demolished. And we will be replacing that building with a new building. And once that building is built, the students will move back from the Thurgood Marshall building into their new school. In addition, Northeast, which had not received money in previous years, but did just receive an allocation in that 75% award for this year. We have not started design yet for this. Because we were waiting on an allocation. This will actually now be a proposed occupancy of August 2024 as well. This is the permanent intended home for Vanguard. Vanguard shares the Thurgood Marshall building with Furley. The intent is, of course, for Furley to go into their building, Vanguard to move into the Northeast building, and then the Thurgood Marshall building, which is a very large size building, will be surplus back to the city. So the Northeast renovation will address repairing and fixing the building up for the Vanguard students, as well as providing some middle school seats for the demand for middle school age students in that area of the city. In addition, we submitted requests for Edmondson and Ben Franklin for planning approval. Planning approval from the IAC means that they are committing to the project and committing to the timeline of the project, and will then give you the money based on the timeline you propose. At the 75% allocation, the planning requests for these projects were not approved. They did not approve either one of these requests. The intent for Edmondson was that all the CTE programs from Westside Skill Center would move into the Edmondson building. In addition, as part of this renovation project, we were going to do some of the systemics that the Edmondson building is in desperate need of, that are way beyond their life cycle. But by moving the CTE programs into the Edmondson building and out of the Westside Skill Center, that supports the CTE plan that has been approved by the board, but it also allows us to then surplus the Westside Skill Center building to the city. So the Ben Franklin project, in addition, Ben Franklin is it's about 101% utilized at this point. So it's just hitting capacity. It's getting a little tight there. We need to create some space again for the CTE programs that are intended to move there as part of the CTE program that was again approved, the CTE district initiatives. And they don't fit in the existing building as it is, because it is utilized to its fullest extent at this point. So those renovations were again also to then create those CTE spaces, as well as do some of those systemics that were needed by the building. Both of these proposed occupancies was to be 2026, but without planning approval, we cannot proceed with them. So we are in a holding pattern at this point, since the IAC did not approve planning. So just hit up on some of the previous approved projects and where we stand with them, just so you know where we are with everything. Pretty much anything from 19 and 20 is in either construction or is complete at this point. FY 2021, most everything is moving from design and into construction contract award at this point. Several are in construction already. We do have one of those completed. In addition, FY 22, which were the ones that were just approved this past May, we're in the process of either acquiring design services or starting design on all of those. In addition, I wanted to mention, and we'll talk about Healthy Schools in just a few minutes, we did submit 19 projects through the Healthy Schools facility funding pot, and so that those 19 projects are in design consultant service award point at this point. And in addition, we have what is referred to as the 15 million HVAC funds, which was, again, I'll talk about details, but it was funding that was in response to that winter that we had a lot of the system breakdowns in our HVAC. Of those that were awarded, of the 18 that were awarded, 13 of them are complete, with 4 still in construction, and we are having some hiccups with one of the ones that's still in design, but we're trying to resolve that with our design engineer at this point. So I want to hit on the air conditioning plan briefly. We always talk about this just to show where we stand with everything. At the beginning of the air conditioning plan, we started with 75 non-air conditioned schools in the district. As of December of 2021, we were down to 19. At that time, we were aiming for a good 4 or 5 more of those to be complete by spring. However, due to supply chain issues and the availability of equipment at this point, those are all going to be pushed through the summer at this point. We are not going to get our equipment in time to be able to get them up for spring season. They'll be over the summer in time for the fall. So by fall, this number should again drop should be somewhere around 12. And several of those are then tied up in things like the House Bill 1 projects through 21st century, or are a couple of those major projects like Furley, which doesn't have air conditioning now, but will when they move into their new building. And a couple of them are on the surplus list still that are yet to be surplus. So we are definitely well making our way down this list. And most of the remaining ones are ones that are have little complications to them that we're working through. I mentioned other school funded or other state funded programs, and I do want to mention some of these projects because they are important to us. The school safety grant, we'd had just shy of $2 million allocated in round 1 and 2, which we used to do lockable classroom doors, access control systems, and other security technology. That money is spent now and has been done for about a year, but we just are in the process of receiving rounds 3 and round 4 actually, which will be $842,000 in round 3 and $866 in round 4. We're still working out all the projects for round 4, but round 3 will include one card access to, I believe it's all the high schools, a secure vestibule in one of our schools. It'll be kind of like our little test case of building secure vestibules in schools that don't have them already, as well as egress plans. Emergency egress plans are a requirement in all of our buildings, and most of them are using really poorly put together drawings and things. So we're going to standardize the drawings across the district and post egress plans so that there are safety plans for all of the schools. In addition, I mentioned the 15 million HVAC funds in regarding the heating issues from that one winter. Again, there were 18 projects that were approved. 4 still in construction, 1 in design. The rest are completed already and online and operational. Healthy Schools Facility Funds. So this legislation back a few years ago did give us some money, and now for FY22, more money is available for this. So in FY22, we are legislatively guaranteed 50% of the $30 million total allocation. So we were guaranteed $15 million. However, the federal government put money into the state in this pot of money also, and since it's in this pot of money, we were also guaranteed 50% of that as well. Our pot for this year was a surprising $50 million. That's 50. This was the highest number. It was honestly, I thought I was dreaming when the state told me that number because it's such a surprise for us. It is separate from the CIP. It only approved projects, or they only allowed projects that were HVAC related. It could be roofing and windows. We could not do elevators, unfortunately. We cannot do fire or safety projects, but we can do things that basically improve the environment of the building. So we have submitted 19 projects, and those 19 projects have been approved for HVAC, roofing, and windows. And in many cases, we've hit all 3 of those systems at several of the schools that need them, so that by the time we're done, that whole build, that all of the systems, the major systems, will be done in the buildings. We should note that these projects do require a local match. So that 19 million we get from the city, which is required to match our CIP, also has to match this money. So we will be spreading that money a little thin to be able to support all of these, but we are really excited about the quantity of projects we received for Healthy Schools this year. In following years, it will be back down to just the 50% of $30 million. I want to just say that is a one-time influx from that federal funding for that. Just so we hit up where we are then with the timeline at this point, the 75% allocation was approved in December. Sometime between now and April, the IAC has to approve 90%. When exactly that is, we don't know. It's really up to the IAC. But in May, they will approve 100%. And then in May, we will then start moving forward with the projects that were awarded. Since most of the CIP projects are the major projects, they're already in design and moving forward anyway. So in conclusion, our two major projects that were not approved for planning were Ben Franklin and Edmondson. We do have the Northeast building was not approved for the full funding we requested. They did approve some funding, so it will at least allow us to get started. But if they hold up when the next allocations come forward for that, that will affect the construction timeline for that. In addition, these 15 systemic projects that are listed here, which vary again from HVACs to elevators to fire alarms, none of these were recommended for funding for this year. Because of the systems and because of the system requests for most of these, they did not qualify for Healthy Schools. So these were not submitted under Healthy Schools either. And we just wanted to just hit up also just a real quick one because people we've been asked about active capital ESSER projects. We did put these across the district and the types of projects that we are using capital ESSER money for at this point. We've got HVAC projects, windows, a lot of health suites, a lot of bathrooms, a lot of nice bathroom improvements, as well as one split system and then a boiler and chiller individual just piece projects instead of full HVACs. But there are 8 HVACs, 23 health suites, and 27 bathroom renovations. And those are the biggest of the 64 projects to date with ESSER funds that we are moving forward with on the capital side. And I think that's the end for me. I know I'm a little bit over my time, so but if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
That's okay. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Smith, to Cindy. Okay, I appreciate you. Get a great presentation. What I'm going to talk, I'm trying to talk a little bit fast so that I wouldn't linger. Could you do, and I'm Commissioner, first I should ask Commissioner Reed, do you have a question before I ask the question?
I'll follow you.
Okay, thank you. Your presentation was full of good information, and thank you very much. But when we give these presentations for 10 or 15 minutes, 20 minutes sometimes, we give all the information, and sometimes I leave or we leave still having absorbed everything, and then somewhere along the line, we end up asking the same question over again, and you say, I did answer that question, but what I would like for you to do that's really important to me, and I'm sure other board members, this is for the board, you listed all the schools that were not recommended, schools that have been recommended. That whole list of schools that are not recommended for specific work, and schools, for example, it went from 24 to down to 19 HV air conditioned, HVAC air conditions that later on in the end of next year and year after that we probably won't get those repairs. Could you do us a favor? And this is really important, and for me at least, when you list those schools that will not be, will still have issues with the air condition, we need the name of those schools and give us a reason why. Again, you did that in the presentation, but separate, and you can give it to Christian. List all the names of those schools, like, and is that it right there? I can't see it.
It is. It's really small. It is in the appendix. The status of all of the air conditioning projects are in the appendix, as far as whether or not they have air conditioning and what the status is of.
Okay, and we need to, because we don't want to wait like we always do, and it becomes a big deal in September when it's 90 degrees and above, 85, 90, 100 degrees in the schools, and everybody's screaming about, why don't we have it? What happened? We need a list, and this list, I guess, I don't know what's on it because I can't see it. Just send it to us or enlarge it, or Christian can give it to us. So we will know. You said 19 schools, and then by the fall, it will probably go down to 12 schools.
Yes.
It would be wonderful if the parents, if everybody, and some people might say, we don't need to let them know that right away. You do. We need to know. So in advance, anybody who's interested will know that that particular school we need to concentrate on, because they will not have air conditioning. And we don't have to come back to Cindy and say, what happened? And you say, didn't I explain that to them before? And it's long. The beauty of communications is letting the board know in advance. I gave you the list. This is why it is either funding or whatever. So that would be my request, and I would be looking forward to this. And I guess Christian, you probably can make a copy of it, enlarge it so we can see it. Okay.
Okay.
And thank you so much.
Of course.
Commissioner, do you have a question that you would like to ask?
Yeah, probably too many. Slap my wrist if I'm doing too many. I guess the first one is, so hopefully from the IAC, we get 24.25 million.
Yes.
What's been the average historically? Because it sounds like a pretty nice drop.
It is. It's usually around 30, 30, 32. It's a drop.
Okay.
It depends every year. They do give us what we should anticipate before, which is usually around the 30 to 32. But because the governor dropped the budget, this did impact it. Yep.
And what's the okay? We're going to get 50 million from the feds and the state for HVAC, roofing, and windows.
Mm-hmm.
But we need a match from the city. Are we going to get that money from the city?
So right now that's slated to come out of the 19 million that we get from the city to match the CIP. Okay. So that same pot of money will match both. Okay, you said something and I picked it up.
Utah-Mashburn will not get repairs for the shell.
Utah-Mashburn. So I used Utah-Mashburn as an example.
No, I need that. That's, okay, they don't have the money for the shell.
Yes.
How much does it cost to put that shell on that building?
Just to replace the exterior skin, those exterior walls of that building, is a $10 million project. Just to do that.
Just for the walls is $10 million.
Yes.
And what else does Utah-Mashburn need?
HVAC, windows. It has a decent roof, so HVAC and windows.
Okay. And the cost of a new building is like
roughly a $16 to $19 million total, and that is about 50% of the value of that building.
Okay, and how much does Stewart Hill need to be in shape?
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I would have to look at the portfolio information.
Okay, when we look at CIP, this is my $64,000 question. Mm-hmm. When we look at CIP and state funding for CIP, mm-hmm. What's the importance of school attendance and school capacity levels in getting CIP funding?
A project can't be submitted for CIP funding unless it is 65% utilized.
Okay.
65% utilization rate for the school.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So just for example, in the current list of schools that are up for the portfolio decisions, New Era is one where they're so far below that rate, Commissioner Reed, that we cannot, there's the boiler issue there that cannot qualify for CIP funding because of that utilization question you just asked.
And you, in New Era is the one in Cherry Hill, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Okay. If Commissioner Reed, if you have any more questions, which would be great, could you just submit it to Christian and he will get those questions answered for you. And thank you very much, Cindy. Really appreciate. Did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right now. Thank you. I don't want to cut you off. Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Our next presentation, everybody, is budget update, COVID and concentration of poverty grants update. Are we ready, guys?
We are ready.
Okay, thank you. Is that Chief Jones' voice I'm hearing?
It certainly is.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So good morning. My name is Teresa Jones. I serve the district as the Chief Achievement and Accountability Officer. And this morning I have with me Dr. Kim Hoffman, and we are going to provide an update regarding our spending of our COVID relief funds, as well as concentration of poverty grant dollars. You can go ahead and move to the next slide, Kim. So for the discussion this morning, we're going to provide a bit of an overview of the grants that have been awarded to the district. And as we do so, we're also going to walk through, excuse me, can we go back, please? And as we do so, we're also going to share with you how we've allocated funds, particularly to schools, both for traditional schools as well as to our charter or contract schools. And then we will speak a bit about how we have handled the utilization of the concentration of poverty grant dollars, which was part of the initial installment of Kerwin funding that the district has now received for a few years. And we want to be able to provide an update around how those funds are being utilized. Next slide, please. So for framing purposes, we sort of hone in on priority 5 as the board's strategic priority, of which this update is most closely aligned. But we also want to acknowledge that the resources are actually being used in support of a whole host of activities that go across the various board strategic priorities, as well as the priorities specifically of our Reconnect, Restore, and Reimagine plan. So as we go through, you're going to hear reference to the areas that are noted here on the right. And of course, whenever we've shown this slide, we've also acknowledged the alignment of our R3 activities with the board's strategic priorities as well. So part of our goal for today's update is that you will see not only what the money is being used for, but you'll have a good understanding of how strategically aligned the work is across the various funding sources, even though we're honing in on the COVID relief grants and the concentration of poverty grant dollars today. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hoffman, and she'll get us started with an overview of our COVID relief grants.
Thank you very much, Chief Jones. So to date, City Schools has received 28 separate grants totaling just over $790 million to support the district in meeting the needs of the COVID-19 pandemic. The vast majority of those grant funds came through 3 ESSER grants, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, that has been provided through the 3 separate federal relief packages. And that total is almost $690 million. And all of those ESSER grant dollars that we have will support the district through fiscal 24. One thing I will note, we have 10 grants that have already ended, and we have fully spent every dollar with those grants that have closed. We are currently on track with all of our approved spending plans. And one piece of note is with these different grants, we do have to submit an application to the state on the front end, but as our needs change or as implementation unfolds, we are able to amend those plans so that we can make any updates that are necessary. And as a reference, you can see there are 2 links here in the slide. With the ESSER grants, there is a link to a document. I know that the committee had asked to understand what the grant funds are allowable to be used for. So we have provided a reference 1-pager for all of the different pieces that the ESSER funds can be used for per the legislation. We've also provided a link to a document with more details that lists each and every one of those 28 grants that the district has received. So you can see the amount of each grant, the time frame for spending, and what we are currently planning to spend those funds on. Within this very large amount of once-in-a-lifetime grant funds to support addressing the pandemic, to date, almost 69 million, 68.9 million to be exact, in these relief funds have been directed to traditional schools, either in provision of supplemental funds or services. Some of the pieces, as Cindy was talking in the last facilities update, are those facilities upgrades that we are able to use some of these ESSER grant dollars for. But the additional things that schools are directly receiving that they are experiencing as extra to support the addressing the impact of COVID are tutoring through partners, funds to provide the extended learning program and credit recovery programs after school, funds to provide all of our traditional schools with additional funds for temporary employees to meet the needs of staffing challenges within their school, summer attendance liaison work we did this past summer, and then other school level choice funds around intervention, arts, enrichment, and athletics. And again, we have provided the link to a document that lists each and every one of our traditional schools and the amount of money in each one of these categories each school has received in either funds or services. Beyond those pieces, there are two additional large investments that all of our schools, traditional and charter schools, have received support through our COVID testing program. To date, the district has invested $19.2 million, and that number is going to continue growing through the end of the year for COVID testing and the provision of school level health and safety coordinators in all of our schools. There are additional COVID testing costs that are being covered directly by the Maryland Department of Health, and we are working to secure FEMA reimbursement for as much of our expenditures to date to maximize every fund source that is available around the COVID testing. In addition, our schools have received the benefit of centrally funded PPE, air purifiers and filters, and the upgrading of filters to MERV 13 where possible. And we continue to use our COVID grant dollars to replenish these supplies as necessary to meet the needs of our schools. And our traditional schools, our charter and contract schools have also been provided significant benefit from these 28 grants. Based on the nature of the grant, charter schools either benefit from the supports and services the grant provides, or the charter school is provided an equitable share of the grant dollars for that charter or contract school to write a school-specific plan. So of the 28 grants, 11 of the grants were formula federal or state grants, meaning that an equitable share of those grants flows to the charter schools, totaling over $113 million. Again, we have provided a link to a document that shows each and every one of our charter and contract schools and the amount they have received across these 11 grants. There is a second group of 11 grants that the charter schools as well as our traditional schools are benefiting. Everything from summer school programming to COVID testing, supports for students that are homeless, AP programming, etc. And then there are 6 grants that were competitive grants to the district that are benefiting traditional schools only. Are there questions on the COVID money before I switch to concentrations of poverty?
No, we're not going to ask any questions until the end because we're running kind of late at this point.
Got it. I will keep going quickly.
Okay,
So
thank you.
with concentrations of poverty, this is currently the 3rd year we are receiving this grant, one of the first pieces of the new Kerwin funding. There are 2 components of this grant, a personnel grant that has been in place from the very beginning that provides a flat amount of funding for every eligible school with the primary purpose of funding a full-time community school coordinator and supporting the expansion of having a full-time nurse in every school. Funds that are not needed for those 2 positions then support wraparound services. The new component, the per pupil grant, started this current year. It was going to be phased in over the next 7 years for schools, and then that per pupil amount is right now about $540 and will be growing to over $3,000. One of the small pieces that's a little confusing, all schools that get the personnel grant, that first grant that we had here, do not all get the per pupil grant because there are different poverty rate cut points for the 2 grant elements as determined by MSDE. As you can see in this current year, through concentrations of poverty, the district is receiving just over $53 million, about $38.6 million through the personnel grant and almost $22.5 through the per pupil grant. 123 schools get the personnel grant and 103 the per pupil. For the personnel grant, once we have covered the costs of the community school coordinators and the nursing expansion, there are a series of supports that our schools receive through a centralized plan. That would be our traditional schools. So we have leveraged the personnel grant to expand social workers so that all of our traditional schools have at least a 1.0 social worker, supports through new teachers, continuing the funding and staffing at our Judy Center, as well as supporting our intensive learning sites. For our charter and contract schools, in place of supports through the centralized plan, they directly receive the funds not needed for the community school coordinator and nurse to write their own school level plan. For any of our traditional schools, any funds that are not part of the centralized plan do go to the school level for choice, and schools determine how they will spend these funds as part of designing their school level budget, aligned with the wraparound supports included in our budget guidance. In terms of our per pupil grant, this first year that we had this grant program, we did align our centralized plan to that Reconnect, Restore, and Reimagine plan, providing schools supplemental funding for arts, athletics, and enrichment, supporting home visits and wellness checks, school culture and school climate plans, further expansion of social workers, support for college and career readiness, tutoring, and after-school programming. And some schools also received additional choice funds. So that is the update on the COVID and concentrations of poverty. Sorry if I went really fast. I know we are time sensitive, but if you have any questions, I will say there are also appendices that give a high level overview of the 3 primary COVID grants, the ESSER funds.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you for moving at that pace. And Commissioner Reed, do you have any questions?
Can you go to page 16?
Thank you.
Okay.
The ESSER 2 appendix, yes.
Yeah, in terms of the line 4, addressing and assessing learning loss. How is that going? I guess in terms of programs, in terms of funding, in terms of success.
Yeah, so if I can jump in, if that's okay, Kim. Yep. Commissioner Reed, for purposes of this update, we're focusing on what the spending is. I think some of your questions around the effectiveness and how it's going will be addressed when we do the comprehensive R3 update that's scheduled to the full board on February 8th.
Okay.
So we did not prepare that information for today's update for the Operations Committee.
Okay, and I guess my overarching question is, Chief Jones, in terms of looking at the whole process in terms of checks and balances for record keeping, accountability, and uses of funds, what do we have in terms of like making sure that the state, the federal authorities, and this new Inspector General, how can we prepare, and how are we preparing to make sure we're okay?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's sort of a multi-layered answer. So I'm going to first speak to what does it mean for these federal funds, and then I'll speak a little bit in terms of like the Kerwin funds, because some of what you're referring to speaks to how the state's blueprint for education is going to be monitored. So as it relates to the federal funds, Kim Hoffman leads our team of data monitoring and compliance, and they've built the infrastructure over the last several years, starting with the work that we've done around our title funded grants, to run a pretty tight ship to ensure that we are only utilizing funds for their intended purpose. And so we have steps along the way that includes everything from the development of a plan to having the approvals of a plan that ensure not only is the strategic alignment there, but also that it ties directly to the requirements of the grant. And then we also have various checkpoints depending on the grant, where we may have monitoring visits with the state or other entities, or in some cases we have to develop reports as a way to communicate both here's what we spent the money on, but also here's what impact we've seen as a result of those investments. So it varies a little bit depending on the specific grant, but the idea is pretty much the same regardless of the funding source. When it comes to preparation for further expansion around Kerwin and how that is playing out, we're in the middle of building out some of that as we speak. Some of it will build directly from what we've already done for the concentrations of poverty grant. So for example, with that initial installment, they communicated a timeline by which we would have to provide regular updates that communicate some of the same things that I've just named. And then, as Kim pointed out, there are sort of new requirements that go into place each year just based on how that was written. And so one of the things that we do is we make sure that we update our infrastructure to make sure that we are up to date on the latest requirements. Because a lot of the details are really hard for folks to keep up with if you are not like in this every day the way that Kim and other members of her team are. So we've tried to organize it in a way that makes it, reasonable in terms of how folks would experience it. In addition to that, we also have a grants steering committee which is comprised of a large number of our chiefs and members of other teams that are directly responsible for strategic decision-making around these funds, as well as the implementation. And we regularly come together to make sure that we are making the decisions that make the most sense for the district. And we then advise our CEO and make sure that, that we are moving forward in the direction that she has dictated for the district. So all of those things are sort of how we do the work. And as I pointed out, there's more information forthcoming around how the accountability board will sort of provide oversight. But we feel pretty confident that with the work we've already done, we will be in a position to meet those requirements as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions, Commissioner?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chief Jones, and thank you for your team and everybody that participated this morning. So we're going to move ahead. Thank you so much again. We're going to move ahead to our procurement. We had 3 procurements. I've read both of them. You want to go ahead and present those procurements, and if you have any questions, Commissioner, feel free to ask questions about the 3. We only had 3 today.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Thank you.
We have, as stated, we have 3 items for your consideration today. The first of them is autumn contracting, which is a roofing replacement at Furman L. Templeton Elementary School, number 125. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board approval of a competitively solicited contract with Autumn Contracting, Inc. in the total amount of $2,413,400. The contract provides for roof replacement construction services.
No questions, Commissioner?
No.
Commissioner Reed, any questions?
0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The second item is Gold Services, Inc. Pipe installation replacement at Lakeland Pre-K to 8 School, number 12. It's requesting a contract increase. The Chief Operating Officer requests that the board's approval and to increase the total contract amount with Gold Services, Inc. from $379,517 to $489,517, an increase of $110,000. This contract provides pipe installation replacement construction services at Lakeland Preschool. The additional cost is related to unforeseen conditions at the school and for the repair that needs to be made while the system is down. The unforeseen conditions were discovered during demolition after removing the ceiling and installation.
No questions for me, Commissioner Reed?
Fine. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last item is portable spot coolers. Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval for a competitively solicited contract with Johnson Controls, Inc., J.F. Fisher, Inc., and Denver and Elklet, Inc. to provide portable spot coolers and electric for temporary space air conditioning at various Baltimore City public schools, building on an as-needed basis. The estimated annual contract cost is $6 million. The term of the contract is from January 26, 2022 through January 25th, 2025, with a 1-2-year renewal option.
No
Okay.
questions.
Commissioner Reed?
No questions.
Okay, thank you very much. All 3 of those were acceptable, and thank you for presenting those to us this morning. And we're gonna move on again. Christian, do you have any? Do we have any comments from the public today?
No, we don't.
Okay. Wow, I can't believe I hit that right on, almost on the button. That was weird. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for participating. It was a good meeting today, and we're going to move on. And I'm going to say, unless you have any questions, anybody have any questions? We have a minute. The minute's gone almost. We're going to say thank you and have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everyone.
Thank you.